How about that? Hey, everybody. How we doing today? Is Coach Boyd, Mark Boyd here with Help and Empower Youth. I'm the co-founder, and we're here for the state of Black Atlanta Youth. And our nonprofit, Help and Empower Youth, we strive to inspire, motivate, mobilize youth to take action that changes their world. And we know that their world is drastically changing. And so we hope to find some answers today, as we are an answer-driven, solutions-oriented nonprofit. And we hope to find some answers today as far as to ways to helping them with these changes. So without further ado, here we go with our board, one of our board members here, Ms. Katie Kissel.
Thank you, Mark. My name is Katie Kissel, and I am an executive board member with Helping Empower Youth. I'm so grateful to be part of such an important organization doing work in the city of Atlanta. And I am grateful to both Mark and KC for all the hard work that they have done throughout the city. And we are going to continue that work into 2021 and beyond. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. And now, okay. And so now we're going to be transitioning to the next part of our program. We have some fantastic people joining us this evening to talk about Atlanta youth and to talk about why we are in the position that we're in and what we can do to move forward.
All right. Thanks so much again for being a part of tonight's event. My name is Casey Venning, and I am the other co-founder of Help and Empower Youth. And tonight is so special for us. It is our first virtual event of 2021, which means you'll be seeing a lot more from us as we have conversations that really impact the lives of our young people, specifically Black Atlanta youth. I know a lot of times we get really antsy about calling those things out sometimes, but it's important. And that is the group of young people that we're serving. And unfortunately, it's a group of young people that seem to be left out the most. We know that Atlanta, through a Bloomberg report, has the widest wealth inequalities and the widest wealth gap in the entire country. And for those of you who know a little bit about me, know that I am okay saying the hard things. And a lot of times it is very troubling to me when we've had decades of Black leadership in our city across all boards, from fire department, our mayor's office, city council, school board, police chiefs, and yet and still our young Black youth are still so negatively affected in this particular city. And so we definitely have to have that conversation. But that's not what the conversation is about solely tonight. It is also about the things that are working well, the things that we need to continue to do, and how we can better partner with one another to ensure that it's not about ego and it's not about name recognition. It really is about setting our young people up for success. And so we're super excited to have this conversation with you all tonight about just that. And you'll find as they begin to come on screen to introduce themselves that we have invited a lot of folks that have been doing the work. And you will know that about us, that we work with folks who do the work, right? And so we have folks who are representing both the Atlanta public school system as teachers and associate superintendents. We have someone who is representing the school board. We have a city councilwoman who is on here. We also have both a parent and student advocate, and we have a community advocate and another nonprofit leader as well. Full transparency. We invited folks from the mayor's office. We invited folks from the Atlanta Police Department as well. So we wanted to make sure that everyone had a seat at the table, and they were extended an invitation to be a part of this conversation. So at this time, we're going to invite each of our panelists up to talk to you for about 30 seconds. They're going to introduce themselves, and they're also going to give you a little bit about the work that they do, the organizations that they are tied to, and we're going to kick it off with Jason Allen.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Casey, so much for having me on this evening. Definitely salute to the work that Hay is doing for the city of Atlanta. My name is Jason Allen. I'm a longtime educator here in the city. I have recently developed the Atlanta Student Coalition that is comprised of students throughout the state of Georgia to deal with such issues that our youth in Atlanta are facing. And so as a former water boy who used to sell waters, and I also used to sell some concessions at Atlanta Public Schools. So I hope the officials don't get on me too bad. But I completely understand where these youth are coming from and definitely would like to see better outcomes for them. So again, thank you, Casey and Mark, for having me a part of this conversation.
Well, hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Casey, for allowing for me to be a part of this conversation. So my name is Andrea Miller, and I am the STEM signature instructional coach at South Atlanta High School, which of course is a part of Atlanta Public Schools. And in my role, I pretty much lead any and everything that has to do with our STEM initiative at the school. And so we know that Black and Brown youth are underrepresented, or Black and Brown people are underrepresented in STEM fields. And so we seek to solve the problem of putting more Black and Brown youth in those fields and to get them prepared in a way where they don't just get there, but they can remain, or at the very least be able to engage with a workforce that's going to be heavily rooted in STEM, in the 21st century. I love what I do because I get to connect what happens in schools every day with what's happening outside of schools and help to, provide more equity for our students. So thank you again for having me tonight.
Greetings and good evening. My name is Asante Hill, founder, president, and chief executive of Black Men and Women of Valor Incorporated. I'm extremely excited to be here today. Thank you, Hey Atlanta, for extending the invitation. We groom underdeveloped and disadvantaged transitional youth. These youth are targeted between the ages of 17 and 21. And so we essentially are coming in as the last lifeline and preparing and providing our mentees with the necessary tools, resources, skills, and etiquette they need in order to thrive. And so we built our program on 5 indispensable pillars, which is edification, enlightenment, empowerment, elevation, and excellence. And our edification pillars where we cater to the personal and professional development of our mentees. And our enlightenment pillars where we're catering toward education and economics. And our empowerment pillars where we identify the dreams and the aspirations of our mentees. And lastly, our elevation pillar, that's where we cater toward the attitude and the altitude of our mentees to ensure that they have the right mindset and the perspective to transition into adulthood. And then excellence, that is where we ensure that we bring the holistic blueprint together by ensuring that we have implemented and also executed on the things that we've put in place in order for them to thrive through their transition to adulthood. Thank you very much, and I'm excited to have the conversation and deliberation today.
Hi, good evening. My name is Madeline Archibong, and I'm a member of the Atlanta City Council, and it is my honor to be here. The role of the City Council, or the city government, frankly, is to provide basic city services: water, sanitation, policing, paving our streets. But we find that the services that the city of Atlanta provides touches every family, every community. And so as we look at the fact that we are all in this together, the city cannot afford to just look at their lane, but we must be in the conversation and committed to doing, as Casey said, the work. And so I am here to listen and to share some initiatives that the city is involved in, and to make sure that we do the best that we can for our community. 30 seconds, you said.
Well, good evening, and thank you so much to the Hay organization and all the amazing things that you are doing in the city. I am honored to be a part of the work tonight and the work that we will continue to do. My name is Dan Sims. I am the Associate Superintendent for High Schools, Single Gender Academies, and Non-Traditional Programs in the Atlanta Public School System. So in a nutshell, I support students as they are in the last stop on the pre-K-12 journey, and that is that journey to graduate and graduate successfully. So I'm responsible for just about 10,000 plus students in our high schools and our single gender academies and non-traditionals, and just excited about the work, mainly because I am an Atlanta native. I've spent my whole 26-year career in the Metro Atlanta area, and just committed to the work, and just so thankful that we are here with other organizations who are committed as well to the young people who need us. I'm also a proud father of two beautiful teenage students, as well as a proud husband to the most beautiful woman in the entire world. Thank you so much for having me here.
Good evening. Hello. My name is Aretta Walden, and I am a parent of a recent high school graduate. I'm also a resident of Washington Park and the District 2 representative on the Atlanta Board of Education. District 2 sits right in central Atlanta, starts up at Atlantic Station and goes down to Oakland City and on over to Douglas and kind of zigzags in the middle. I serve on the audit committee as well as the board development committee. I also serve on the Atlanta Beltline Affordable Housing Committee. The primary responsibility of the board, while we do a good number of things, but the primary responsibilities are approving the budget, hiring the superintendent, and setting policy. And I'm proud to say that we have recently passed two really exciting policies around trauma-informed and restorative practices. And I'm definitely excited and honored to be here in such great company. Thank you.
Awesome. Dr. Dan, I just want to let you know, when you gave your wife the shout out, it was a lot of oohs and ahs in the background. We love around here. So,
Amen. Thank you.
good stuff. Appreciate it. So we're going to get into this conversation tonight. We are really going to have an honest conversation about Black Atlanta youth, right? It's taboo in some conversations. It is also a situation where we sometimes find ourselves not knowing exactly what to say, what to do. But we have to have those conversations. I have had to remind folks over the last couple of months that Hay ain't new to this, right? In the sense that we've been doing this work for a good long while, but we did have to pivot. And I think that's something for us to be mindful of in the work that all of us are doing. That while we were doing STEM work, right? So shout out to Andrea and the work that she's doing as a STEM instructional coach, and lots of work that we do together over at Goody Nation, and, helping to ensure the pipeline, the K-12 pipeline to STEM careers. We have been doing that work in a very non-conventional way: go-karts, bicycles, old truck engines, mechanical engineering, because every child is not going to want to code. Every child does not want to, build websites and do that type of thing or be in robotics. But our children should know that you are really descended from those who created math and science. So to say that you can't do math and you can't do science is not true. We just need to find out how. And so that is how we spent a lot of our time and a lot of the work that we were doing until March 13th of 2020 happened, right? And I know that date, and I know Dr. Dan and Andrea and Jason know that date as well, because it's the day that life changed when it comes to young people in the city of Atlanta. COVID happened, and we had to shut the doors physically anyway for a time in our public school systems. And it did one of two things. And I want to make sure that we are very clear. This is not just a conversation about the perceived water boys. This really is about Black Atlanta youth and what we are doing for them. But March 13th pushed about 600 to 700, primarily young Black boys, to the streets, simply because the world shut down and no one really knew how to navigate that. What we did not realize until it was in our face is that there were some systems that were broken, right? So for young people to not have another outlet other than to go to the streets when the school doors had to be closed, not a choice that they made lightly, right? But to keep people safe, there was nothing else. And that in itself then began to uncover so many of these other issues that have been lying dormant or had a Band-Aid put upon them that got ripped off on that particular day, that I'm sure all of us have now been affected by in one way or another. So I want to start the conversation off with where do we think, or what do we think the other issue is in terms of why we are now seeing so many young people not have positive or effective programming or outlets in order for them to have made another choice? So let's forget the fact that they're out there. What was not in place so that when this happened, the only other option they had was to go to the streets? And that's for anybody.
I will start with one of the challenges is not only were the schools closed, but everything else closed too. Mm-hmm. So if churches was an alternative, that was closed as well. Mm-hmm. If the YMCA was an alternative, the Boys and Girls Club was an alternative. All of those outside resources kind of shut down, and it fell really directly on the hands of the caregiver. Mm-hmm. In terms of what to do. And if they were in a situation where they were an essential worker, then they weren't in a situation where they could be there to care for and program for their child. And there could be a number of other circumstances. But then in addition to that, I want to say, I feel like our sense of community has I'm not going to say failed, because it's there, because look at us, we're here now. But it's not as strong as it was in terms of your neighbor, your auntie, your cousin. If somebody saw you doing something, that they had no problem saying something to you and correcting you and redirecting you. So that sense of community, that village, is not as strong as it used to be. Oh. And so when all of those resources went away, it was left to the village, and the village wasn't whole and complete to be there to pick up the ball.
If I can,
go ahead, Dr. Sam.
No, ladies first. Go ahead.
Thank you. I had a feeling he was going to say that anymore. But I think I would agree with that. You know, honestly, I don't know if things changed. I think it just revealed, things that were already there. Because I mean, if we're going to have a really honest conversation, those things were already broken. Those babies that everybody think just showed up on the corner, they've been on the street. It's just that everybody was moving so quick, you didn't realize that the baby was on the street, but they've been out there. They've been walking up and down, doing, trying to hustle and survive. It's just that the world and our city slowed down enough that people couldn't ignore it anymore, but it was always there. And so I think that's something that I would, I think about, and that I would encourage people to think about, is that, and that's been the frustrating thing about this whole, I think education as a whole, even across the nation, has been waiting to go back to something. But I'm like, go back to what? It wasn't like the inequities started on March 13th. They've been there. So I don't know if we need to be going back to anything. I think we need to be tearing down what existed and reimagining where we need to be going forward. I'm a person of the Christian faith, and I'm like, person I read in the Bible that turned back and looked back, she a pillar of salt. So what are we looking back for? So I just think that COVID just really revealed things. It just revealed, and it really basically showed all of us in all parts of the system that just like people play house, we've been playing school. We've been playing school. And now we can't play school anymore. We can't play like people are achieving as much as they are. They're not. So I think that is the thing that crosses my mind, is that we have to swallow that bitter pill first before we go forward.
I'm not
Amen.
Okay, go ahead, brother Dan. I wasn't sure if you were going to chime in next or not, but go ahead.
I appreciate it, brother. I'm going to chime in on that same faith example. There was another person in the same book I believe in who looked into the crowd and saw people distressed and depressed and said, the harvest is truly plenteous, but laborers are few. What's missing are laborers. And when I say laborers, I'm talking about adults. Pre-COVID, and as I think about the time when I was coming up, everybody knows with young people, you have to keep them busy doing something worth doing. Whether it is a football in the street or a job, they have to be busy doing something that is worthwhile, and they have to be guided in doing so. And what we see in our Water Boys is just one example of a group of young men who want to be busy doing something worthwhile, who just need some guidance. And what we lack is all of us as adults being on that similar page as it relates to our love and our investment in our young men and our young ladies, as opposed to looking at them in some other kind of way. I believe the problem we're talking about, a lot of times we'll call it a high school problem or a middle school problem or a K-12 problem. To me, it's a conception 12 problem. So from conception all the way to the time that they become so-called adults, that is that time we need to go back and look at pre-COVID and ask ourselves, have we given our young people from the community centers to the streets, to their houses, to the churches, to the schools, enough to do so that they stay occupied, but not only enough to do, enough adults to look to turn to listen to, who actually love them to your right and to your left, back to Board Member Baldwin's point. Like, I remember being in that space where everywhere I looked, somebody was wondering what I was doing and holding me in check. And it just made sense. And it made me feel loved, and it held me accountable. And it's part of the root of what made me the man I am today. And that costs no money whatsoever. That's just a human investment into young people. And we could start that tomorrow if our hearts really wanted to.
So I wanted to chime into the conversation. The educator in me, I brought two resources to share. The first one is the Atlanta riot. And, you know, a lot of the pictures behind me, I use to teach my students about the importance of social justice. And when we think about this conversation, this is an ongoing issue in the city of Atlanta. This book references when Atlanta was burnt down. Around the time of Reconstruction. And what a lot of people don't remember is the Black elite had to wager with those people who did not want to see us alive, not property owners, not educated. They didn't want to see us alive. And so the Black elite sold out the Black middle class and the Black working class. And those issues continue today. The very families that we put on pedestals and celebrate, from churches to institutions to organizations, are the same families that still have blood on their hands. When I talk to the seniors in my community and on my block, they say that this time reminds them of how the cheating scandal, in Atlanta started. It reminds them of the time of the Atlanta missing and murdered children. This is something that is not new to us. And so what I would challenge, I'm so grateful for elected officials who I had commented earlier and said they have a heart for the people, because too often we have elected Black faces on school boards and on city council and in the mayor's office that have not done right by the very children that we're sitting here now talking about. And so I would commission everyone to not forget where we've come from, because this is not anything new. This is something that has been created, that we all had ancestors that wagered in this. And so how do we go back and create those wrongs and give this generation of youth an opportunity to change the very situation that was created for them by people who look like us and people who do not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's, and go ahead, Asante. I see you ready to jump in.
Yeah. No, thank you so very much, Casey. Good evening to everyone again. I'd have to say it's pretty safe to say I'm more than likely the youngest on the call today. And I'm extremely excited about that, because I'm able to bring a different light and a different perspective. However, I believe that we all share that one common denominator. And all of you have been very aligned with what I believe to not only be the issue, but what I also believe to be a part of the solution. And so I'd like to open up and say that I believe that the tides are turning, and that a lot of times that you have to be revealed and you have to be exposed to what's not working in order to fix it. And to Andrea's point, she made an incredible point about us being able to slow down. And I live downtown Atlanta, and I go on runs a lot. I go on a jog often. And it never ceases to amaze me that the days that I decide to take a walk, I always see things that I don't see when I go on a run. And so to that point, to that very good, and I mean, and I've lived downtown for 4 years, and to this day, I always still see things that I would never have seen if I didn't stop to just simply walk and look around me and to see also my peripheral and my environment. And so what's lacking is ownership. At times, we can be our worst enemy. We could be the individual that, we have to essentially look at the speck in our own eye. And so there, frankly, I've come to the realization that there is no law, there is no government, there is really, truly nothing that will save us besides ourselves. And now more than ever, we need young leaders who are willing to step up to the plate of adversity and get into the trenches and to roll our sleeves up and to fight for what not only we so rightfully deserve, but for our own futures and for the not only generational wealth, but for the generational stability of our future and furthermore this nation. And so it's up to us in this very moment to reach back and grab the people that are going to be pioneers and trailblazers just very soon from now, 10 to 15 years from now, the individuals that we are speaking about, the individuals that we are currently articulating their situations and circumstances are going to be our next politicians, our next leaders, our next doctors, our next engineers. And it's up to us as a community. We owe it to them. We owe it to them. These young men did not just start coming outside this past March. These are the young men that essentially have already been rejected, cast aside, and forgotten about. These are the young men that society has already given up on us. And so this is why a lot of people don't do the work that we do, because it's not easy, and it's truly the work. It's truly the work. And so I get very passionate. I get very fired up about this because it's time. It's been time. We've been in a state of emergency, not only on a local level, but on a national level, and even on an international level as well. And so it's up to people like us and trailblazers and pioneers to reach back now. I realized at a very young age, I'm 25 years old. I realized at a very young age that all of my skills and talents and abilities are given to me for the empowerment of other people. And that it's bigger than me. Everything that happens that I have for me is not for me, it's for the empowerment of other people. Yeah. And when you can begin to help people identify their dreams, their goals, and their aspirations, that's when you begin to uproot the generational cycles that perpetuate our communities.
No, that's awesome. And I'm glad that you brought that up. And this next question, I want to direct to our elected officials who are on the panel tonight. And I would like for you two to share whose responsibility is it, right? I know personally that each of you as individuals are committed and connected to the work. So again, this is not a personal question, but more so from your elected positions and from the access and information that you all are privy to. When we talk about Black Atlanta youth who are long or at least feel forgotten about, right? So I want to be careful about language. And in some instances are forgotten about. I tell people all the time, the young men that I work with are not the ones who were just sitting in ISS. They were put out of school or felt as though school was not an option. And so there was no more tracking of them because they were not connected to a system. So there's a whole nother level of young people that is really flying under the radar simply because they're not connected to a system. But in the big grand scheme of things, whose responsibility is it to ensure that young people have what they need to be successful here in the city of Atlanta? And Councilwoman Archibong, we're having a hard time hearing you.
That was my question. Can you hear me?
No, ma'am.
Still can't hear me? Can I do some sign language?
It's faint.
So my earbuds are not working well.
Oh.
So should I just give up?
Well, I don't want you to give up, but can you take your earbuds out? Maybe we can hear you through your computer's microphone.
They are out, and I have been screaming at them.
Okay.
Can you hear me at all now?
We can hear you a little bit if we pay attention, so just get close.
I don't want my big nose on here.
It's all right.
Thank God for a nose, right? So what I would say, and I appreciate all the questions, is that everything's been so fragmented. everybody takes their little piece.
Mm.
They think that they have done their thing, but as long as we are not working in a coordinated way, we're all going to continue to have the same problems over and over again. I keep thinking about the talented 10th, right? So we think about kids aspire to be this leader, this great leader. But what about giving back and reaching back and seeing if the condition of one isn't good, then the condition of all is fragile and not good. And so I would like to see better cohesion. By the time you get to a city service called the police, it is way late. We have failed so far down the path. And so I would like to see the city in a stronger role of partnering with those entities and organizations that are doing the supplemental work. APS has a role, the city has a role, our NGOs have a role, community has a role, and we've got to link arms together. And so for the city, I would say we need stronger partnership.
Thank you. Your partnership is key. So for those of you who may, heard part of it, definitely Councilwoman Archibong saying that partnership is necessary, that in order for this job to get done, it's going to take all of us. Is that what you also think and believe?
Yeah, that's basically what I was going to say is it's everyone's responsibility. All hands on deck. We all have a role in this, from elected officials to parents to community members to business owners to nonprofits to civil servants. Everyone has a role when it comes to our youth. I mean, they're our future. And yes, we definitely need more collaboration, more integration, more communication, right? And understanding that if we all work together towards one common goal, we could probably go faster and stronger.
That's what they say. It's the African proverb, right? Mm-hmm. If you want to, what is it? If you want to
get there.
Yeah, if you want to get there fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yes, thank you.
And that's what it seems. I needed my village to help get the wheels turning just then. But it brings me to this other question that I get in trouble a lot for when I get on my Facebook Lives, and I'm trying to do a little bit better.
That's that good trouble. Come on.
Keeping the emotion in check, but good trouble, as our dear brother John Lewis would tell us. We do have the widest wealth gap in the country. I live on Lowry on purpose. Okay, let me put that out there because people will, well, why you live over there, right? I've gotten that question a lot. I'm over here on purpose. I'm a product of the AUC, the historic and legendary Morris Brown College. And so I've been here for a long time, right? And it is a little discouraging to see people who want to flock to our city because we're still a chocolate city and we have Black leadership and Black folks are driving Bentleys and Teslas and living in mansions and starting businesses and wearing red bottoms and buying out Phipps Plaza. And we have, celebrities moving here. This is now the Hollywood of the South, and Black folks are getting their time to shine. And then I see on the other hand that I have young people who literally have to pay their aunties money to be able to sleep in the home for the night. And then those of us who are in the middle, let me speak for myself, barely hanging on, right? Trying to hang on to this middle class lifestyle of ours. And I don't understand, and maybe y'all can help me, how we've largely, and I know it hasn't been specifically steady in all areas, but for the better part of 40 years, we've had Black leadership. And I'm not just talking about necessarily in elected officials and that kind of thing, but we've had Black folks running a good deal of this city for a long, long time. How is it that we have people who look like us, who say that they're about the work of us, but we still have babies who have to help contribute to the household income at 13 and 14 years old? Can somebody help me make sense of that?
I can't make it make sense, but I'm going to comment on it because it doesn't make sense. It's a nightmare.
Right.
And like Dr. Sims, I was born in Atlanta and grew up even on the metro. I grew up in Decatur, so I've seen all of this. When I went to college, I wasn't short of seeing Black leadership, but I think there's things working on two ends. On the leadership end, and I'm just going to call it the way I see it, when people get into positions of power and influence, whether they were elected to be there or whether they were appointed or they got a job to be there, at some point in leadership, decisions stop being about who you're serving and it begins being about self-preservation, if you want to call it what it is. People start making decisions that are going to keep them there or get them to the next point on their whatever they're trying to get to, and it stops being about who they're representing. On the other end of things, I think as a community, we have to learn to get better at holding people accountable that we've put in positions or allowed to hold different positions. We can't think representation is just the first step, right? And we need representation, but representation is really just the first step. We can't have people, get the representation by getting, Black people to be in leadership positions and think all is well and celebrate. We start bringing out the fatted calf too early. No, we now have to hold those people accountable for what they were put in those positions for. If they have a position that they, whatever position they have, we have to hold them accountable. We got to ask questions. We have to demand answers. And if they can't give us those answers, then they need to not be there. The problem is that people in our more affluent communities, they know how to do that. They know how to ask questions. They know what questions to ask, and they're going to make sure that whoever they put in office is going to fight for what they want, even if what they want is going to widen this gap. The thing you can't say is the person that they put in there is not speaking for them. We have to do that better. And so if both of those things, I think, improve, then we can get there. But if they don't, then you have people making decisions for their own comfort. You have the other side not holding them accountable. And here we are.
I would like to add that I think that it's the struggle of how do we fight the system. This is a problem. So the second founding is a book that I use when I'm talking to my students about what can we proactively do. The power is in policy. Ms. Miller, she dropped so many great nuggets on us just now. We know these things, right? Our counterparts know these things. People that come into the United States, they understand this. So in the second founding, it talks about how after Reconstruction, I keep bringing up Reconstruction because we're coming up on the centennial of so many monumental moments in America that took away Black power. And so this is about power. How do we capitalize on power? It's not good enough for us to just have Black and brown faces in, places that can make change. Being a former administrator in APS, I know how the system works. You can have all of these great people in positions all day long, but if the policies are not changed, and that's in every department. Family engagement, for example, is not doing the work that it could do because of the policies that are in place that block it. And I know that for a fact, because if they were in place and the things that needed to be done could be done, then there would be no need for Atlanta Thrive. There will be no need for Redefine Ed that has to give away money for parents to be trained on how to advocate and work with school board members, because where Aretta is doing the work, she's only one person. And she's only one person that can be held accountable to the level of politics that are being dealt with in a system. So this is political. This is about policy. This is about power. This is about control. If all of these Black students in Atlanta, just think about it. If all of them started thriving tomorrow and data started changing, then we would have to lose money, because why would we need to have all these specialists? And why would we even need to recreate or think about changing curriculum so that it is, culturally inclusive, so that there can be change? If these boys had better workforce development options, I'm not saying they're not available. I said if they were better options, then there wouldn't be so many youth that would be disenfranchised. But if they weren't disenfranchised, then APD wouldn't be in an uproar. It's in the books. It's in history. These things are not new. So again, we know what needs to be done. Are we going to have the courage and the boldness that so many of our ancestors had to change it. And that's what has to happen.
That's good. Dr. Dan, did you have something?
I agree with the angles. Let me just add another angle, and I'm going to use an example. I'm thinking about the time, and I was that teenager going into my 20s, and I remember vividly watching the West Side go from when I rode my bike, and everywhere I rode, there was a house and there was a family. There was a house and there was a family. There were no blighted properties whatsoever. And then crack found its way, as one example, to the West Side. And my point is this: we have to kill the culture of allowance that has happened from my perspective in leadership and also in community members, in that we see something happen, we see the impact of it, and we allow it to continue, either by not doing anything at all, doing something opposite, or being totally silent. And what I see are years and years of this culture of allowing things to occur and then not doing anything about it. The next thing you know, you have this incredible problem, and we wonder where it came from. Well, it came from when it started, to Brother Jason's point, where it started years ago. And perhaps there were people, from the man who lives in the neighborhood, a woman in the neighborhood, to someone in leadership, who could have and should have spoken up and said, wait, hold up. We're going in the wrong direction. Let's pull together. We see what impact it is having on our young people. To your point, to your original question, a leader has to care about that baby that's not his or not hers. And until you care about that baby that's not his, not hers, and see that web and how their behavior or lack thereof will contribute to what will happen even in your house, it's not going to make any kind of difference. But we've allowed just incredibly too much to occur and been really silent about it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point for us to maybe unpack just a few minutes longer. The caring part, right? So again, this work that we're doing is not unique in the sense that we've always worked with young people, and we've always worked with young people who were quote unquote hard to work with. Both Katie and I are AmeriCorps alums. I served at Bethune Elementary before it was told it was uninhabitable, right? So close the doors only for it to be used as a housing school for schools that are getting renovated. Now, if it's not good for the babies in Vine City, how is it still good for other folks to come for a year while their schools are being renovated? But I digress. So I was at Bethune. He was at Hope Elementary before it became Hill Hope. We know at one point Boulevard was the poorest street in the entire state of Georgia, right? And so we had young people who wanted some interaction. We thought we were going to continue building this relationship because at Hope, KD was the only male in the building, not the only Black male, not the only brown male, the only male, from janitor, cafeteria worker, teacher, paraprofessional, period. The only male in the building. And so he had an all-male after-school program, and the goal was to continue to build those relationships. The Beltline was brand spanking new. It wasn't as politicized as it is now, and we thought we were just going to take the babies on a bike ride. Well, we get there, and the babies can't ride bicycles because what? There was never any safe place in Boulevard and Bedford Pines to ride a bicycle. Or the Atlanta Hawks and the Falcons and some other foundations we won't name would come and drop bicycles off at Christmas time and say, hey, here you go, you know, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and then they would get out of Dodge, right? So we thought, put the babies on the bike, take a bike ride, let's have a good time. We'll do this a few times. Well, a whole organization was birth out of, no, we need to go back. We have to teach these babies how to ride. Now we have to teach them how to repair their bikes. And now their mama's bikes wants to be repaired. And now they're friends. And now a whole STEM program developed organically out of a heart and a passion of caring about continuing a relationship, because he was the only man in a building that some of these children saw in the educational system. And we saw this revisit itself in May of this past year when we stopped on North Side and Boom to say, yo, if you're going to be out here selling water, I need you to put a mask on, wear your gloves, get the trash bag, put the trash in there. Have you eaten today? Here's some pizza for you. And we're not just going to come tell you what to do, but we're going to then come back. And we went back every day for months. Asante was out there with us. Jason had come out there with us, right? There were other council people who had come to see what was happening. And we were out there in the sun, making sure that they knew somebody cared. And now that they know that somebody cares, we can now have the conversation. Your choices aren't always wise. And it's not coming from a place of here's another adult telling us what to do, another adult who doesn't know our life, but it's now based out of relationship. Because while I did not birth these babies out of my body, you can't tell me I don't have 20 sons. Right. And so they know, because that is how I treat them as well, to the point where I have grandmothers who are calling me now and saying, hey, I can't get them, but I hear them murmuring amongst themselves when they're trying to make a decision. Miss Casey wouldn't like that. Well, what would Miss Casey be okay with? And so if I can't get them to do it, as long as somebody can do it. And the problem is too many of these grandmamas who are still raising these babies, these aunties, these older siblings, they don't have this larger village of people who care anymore, because so many of us have gotten in our little middle class lanes, have moved out into the suburbs. And again, get yours, live life, build, grow, leave a legacy for your family. Don't mishear me. But if we don't know how to come back, and if we don't know how to teach the lessons of how relationships matter and how to build them, we're going to have a generation of young people who are lost, because too many of us don't know how to move forward and bring along. And that's what we need to get back to. It can be both and. It does not have to be either or. And my larger question for us as we talk about partnerships is, how do we get back to the humanity of these young people who are forced to make decisions out of experiences, not necessarily out of wisdom? And too many times we're assuming and expecting them to make good choices that we've had knocks against our heads to learn, but we had a safe place. We had somebody to catch us when we hit our head against the brick, and they're hitting their heads against bricks and falling on bricks, and there's nothing there for them. And yet we're holding them solely responsible. And so, all of that to say, how do we now rebuild this village? How do we rebuild community? How do we rebuild making sure that people understand it is your responsibility to build a relationship? Maybe not with 20 like we've done, but are you building a relationship with your niece? How about your little sister? Your godson, the neighbor next door? Can you pick one, right? And the problem is some of us are not picking one to be able to build these relationships with, and making the assumption that everybody had what we had in order for them to be successful.
If I could, wow, Casey, thank you so much for that delivery. Man, as I sit here and reflect on what it means and what it takes to be a Black man in society today. Man, a lot of, right now we're seeing the backlash of mass incarceration. We're seeing the backlash of 3 strikes, you're out. We're seeing the backlash of a lot of things that happen that we may not thought at the time was going to take a big toll, but a lot of our fathers are missing. A lot of our uncles are missing. When you go to the family reunion, you see auntie and grandmama, but where's grandpa? Where's granddad? They're gone. They're gone. And these young men specifically right now, I myself specifically right now, yearning for mentorship, yearning for guidance, yearning for direction, from having to build from the ground up with no assets, with absolutely nothing. Father didn't graduate high school. Father passed away to drug addiction in 2012. And so these cycles that we're not able to uproot because we're either not addressing them or trying to address them too late. And so we're in a position now where Black men, and I have to say this, Black men have to step up. We have to take responsibility for the whole blueprint, for the whole thing. And that includes the upbringing and the uplifting of Black women. And it believes with us starting to lead not only our families and our communities, but leading ourselves and taking the ownership and the responsibility to say that nobody's going to come and do this for us but us, and reaching and grabbing these young men so that they can begin to start to lead their communities. And when we begin to become their environment, now they take that back to their community and their younger siblings. And now we're able to begin to uproot, once again, those generational cycles that are perpetuating our communities. But right now, more than ever, We need young Black men and Black men who are ready to step up to the plate and go to these schools and sit with them during the day and go to these homes and check on these parents and ensure that the right infrastructure and the resources are in place. But right now, today, what's happening is we have young Black adults who are having children who are not prepared, who are not ready, who are not ready to give what they need to do in order to be the parent that they need to become, in order for their children to be the adult that they need to become. And so what's happening is in our homes, a lot is missing. And so by the time nonprofit organizations get there, and by the time we get there, we're up against 16 and 17 years of bad habits, bad environments, bad behaviors. And so we have to begin to try to get ahead of this thing. But what's happening now is young women who are 20 and 19 and 21 years old and maybe 17. I mean, they're in the club with their grandma and their mom. And so there's no leadership. There's nobody saying, no, young lady, come this way. That's the wrong way. No, young man, I need you to come this way. That's the trick of the enemy right there. That's not the one. This is the one. And I don't currently have it. And I'm blessed that I know I have a relationship with God to know that he continues to lead me, regardless if I have my earthly father or not. But I just have to say that right now, and I don't have all of the answers, but I know one thing for sure and one thing for certain. That's the reason I founded Black Men of Valor, was to create a safe haven and was to create a platform where Black men could come together and to commune and to fellowship and to converse and to laugh and to cry and to do the things that we don't necessarily always have the environment to do. Because what typically happens, and I'm sorry, I'm going to shut up here in just a second, but what typically happens is as these young men are coming up, we're told to sit down, shut up, sit down, shut up. And what's happening is in our homes, our gifts and our dreams are being torn out of us because all we hear is sit down and shut up. And now they just get a Game Boy or a video or an iPad. And so now they're losing the interpersonal skills. And so now they don't have the confidence to go in an interview. Now they don't have the confidence to have a conversation. And so we got to backdate to a lot of things in order to begin to uproot what's happening. But I know for sure that Black men more than ever have to step up to the plate.
Hey, Casey, I wanted to just say this to my brother's point. Black men, of course, I think that there's room definitely for us to step up, but I do want to go back to March 13th of last year. Black people have to step up because we have families that were left behind. We're not thinking about children that are being raised by grandparents or who don't have any family members at all that have been lost in the pandemic because they're frontline workers. So yes, we do need Black men, but we also need Black men, Black women, Black parents who are going to be sensitive to the needs of all of our children, whether they are exceptional learners, whether they are Muslims, whether they are LGBTQ. We need them to be intentional about working with all of our children because that's where this narrative of all Black lives matter come from. And we have to think about the 3,000 plus homeless children in Atlanta who are Black, a lot of them who are Black boys that do not have people that are reaching them because of who they are and where they come from. So I wanted to also just add that to my brother's point. Black men, we do need you to step up, but we also need everyone to help cover all of our children, especially those pockets of Black children who are being left behind and forgotten about.
Dr. Dan.
Yeah, just want to throw another angle in. If I didn't say this, I would be misrepresenting myself and everybody else who's like me. Black fathers have to step up. We don't let mothers off the hook for some reason, but we'll let a Black father off the hook in a minute and almost act as if it is impossible for him in some kind of way to step up. So I think there's room in their space for us to better engage our Black fathers. And what makes me think about this are two things. I remember on Facebook, I have students now who I taught who are now 30, 35, but there was this crazy conversation that started one day. And one person put a post and they said, the pain that I have now as a grown woman at the lack of the relationship I had with my father. And then tons of people started responding, and all of this pain from individuals who did not have that blood man who was responsible for bringing them into this world and never righted the wrong relationship that was there. So I think there's opportunity that we look at blood and make sure we focus on family. I believe in mentorship. I believe more in family. And there's a family repair opportunity that we have to take advantage of. The second thing, and I'll be quiet, I remember in the 1980s, I was a child during the missing and murdered children time frame. And there was this moment where they created this organization called the Batmen. And all it was Black fathers who said, hey man, go get your bat. Hey, Rick, go get your bat. Hey, John, go get your bat. And they all grabbed bats and they policed the community day in and day out with bats. It was the most profound thing to see. Not just black men, but black fathers saying, let's take it to the streets and let's show some leadership. And it gave us a level of hope just to see that happen. And I don't want us to miss the opportunity in the midst of incarceration and everything else that perhaps has pulled our black men away. The ones who are able need to demonstrate that ability. And I wear that as a father now. These two in my house, that's my responsibility. And I take it seriously. And it's in a place of love and blood that causes me to do it. Not a law, not a policy, not a procedure, not a protocol. Love and the blood that I share with them. So I just want to throw that angle in as well.
I wanted to jump in too and say the couple of things that I heard, Casey, when you just said everything that you said so beautifully, and I saw Dr. Sims put relationships, they're free. I think a lot of times people throw money at things that don't cost money. It doesn't cost money. Now, what it will cost some people is their comfort. That's what they don't want to pay. It will require for some leadership. It will require for people to exercise some character, but it most certainly does not cost money. There are real things that cost hard cash, that we need. And so in saying that, we need people in our schools and outside of our schools, because the school can't solve everything, but we need people that are willing to build relationships, or at the very least create the culture for relationships to thrive. And you can't build relationships or cultivate relationships until you invest time. I don't care what kind of relationship it is, you have to invest time. I see Antonio Lewis on here. He's a South Atlanta alum. He's back in the community and he's putting in time. We all know our kids. If you don't want to put in the time, why are we requiring things from our kids that we can't give them, that we're not giving them? Folks want kids to commit to A, B, C, D, and E. What have you committed to them? And if you're not going to commit time, and if you're not going to build a relationship, then you can't expect for them to go hop on your train and believe and drink the Kool-Aid that you're trying to sell them. And so I think that's something that we need to think about. We need to protect our kids at all costs from people who are trying to play like they're helping, but you don't want to come spend time, because there are people out there that will come up into our communities, come up into our schools with something that looks shiny. They want to throw money. They want to take pictures with the little black kids, and you don't see them anymore. But you see pictures up on their website acting like they did all of this and that. No, you didn't. You didn't spend any time. You didn't build any type of relationships. So that means we need leaders in our buildings and in our school districts that are creating and cultivating cultures where teachers can remain and stay, because if they don't stay, they can't build a relationship with people always switching and changing, right? But we also need people outside of the schools, in our communities. We need people in every facet that are willing to create those types of conditions. Because I'll tell you this before I stop saying anything. The minute we left and went home, what held us together in the spring were people who built relationships with kids. Because if you built relationships with your kids, you just kept it pushing. You already know you got my number, so you text me. We keeping it pulling. Now, when school started, the tough part was you didn't have that. We weren't at school. So no one had the opportunity to build a relationship with kids. We just expecting kids people trying to build relationships through, the computer screen. And that's where you begin to see where relationships really do matter. And so the way we were able to for those people who had relationships, you texted little Johnny, and Johnny went into the neighborhood and got this next person and got the next person and got the next person, because people had relationships. Yeah. And so you have to invest time if you want relationships. So we have to have structures that allow people to invest that time, and that's free. And then that way you can allocate money to things that really cost money.
Yeah. Asante, I'm going to come back to you before we kind of wrap up with the last thought for tonight.
Yes, thank you so much. I just wanted to ensure that my last statement before everyone was able to give feedback wasn't, of course, misinterpreted. The fact of the matter is Black women have already been doing this work. The strength of our community is built from Black women. I was raised in a house where my mother knew one thing she knew how to do was survive. She raised all 4 and 3 of my siblings on her own. She was the mother and the father. She taught us how to take out the trash, and she also taught us how to treat women. And so what's missing is Black fathers. And so what's happening is, and I've been able to be a lot more gracious, because when I look back then over my father's life, I realized that his father wasn't there. And then when I talked to my grandmother, I realized that, okay, my grandfather's father wasn't there. And so how do we begin to help the young fathers that become fathers early on? Because what happens is, as young Black women, they're taught very early on and groomed and almost programmed to be mothers and nurturers and lovers. And they got little play sets where they're cooking and cleaning and brushing hair. And then as Black men, young Black men, we're not really being brought up to be taught how to be good fathers. And so that element of our upbringing is missing. And so by the time we, prematurely have a child, our father's either missing or it may just be too late to teach those things. And so, I mean, just to that point, I want to ensure that I wasn't misinterpreted, that Black women, man, I mean, we wouldn't be where we are. We wouldn't be having this conversation if it wasn't for a Black woman today, Casey Venning. And so I want to ensure that we don't get that mistaken. However, we as Black men have to come together, find a solution as fathers, as advocates, as teachers, as leaders, as politicians, because if we lead, our people will follow. Our people will follow.
Amen.
Good.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Casey? Oh my gosh. Oh my God. I wrote a whole big thing in the chat, but I'll try to say it quickly. In my other life, I'm an attorney. And one of the sad things that happens is in the area of child support.
Yeah.
As you may know, that the state law does a really good job of making sure that these so-called deadbeat dads pay. But there's nothing that requires the state can demand the blood test, establish paternity, establish child support. But guess what they won't do in that same setting? Give the father legal rights and visitation. They don't care about that. They care about this deadbeat dad. It sets up an adversarial relationship between that mother and that dad, because it's all about the dollars. It's a replay of that whole welfare game. Better not have a man up in this house, right? You're getting benefits. And I've asked state representatives about that, but it is just too sexy and trendy to just talk about the deadbeat dad. It is not as sexy to talk about what we're talking about, which is that father-child bond.
Yes.
And we don't need the state to make us do it, but we also don't need the state to set up barriers. So that's my 2 cents.
That's powerful. That's
that.
powerful.
It is. And, a lot of that is something that goes missing as well, because we make the assumption, I think, to the last thing that Asante said, is that, the old adage, mama's baby, papa's maybe, right? And folks play on that. And some people absolve folks of responsibility. But then there are a lot of Black fathers that I know personally that have had this same system work against them, that they've done everything asked of them, and yet and still they're not given the opportunity to be there to help raise their children.
That's right.
And so we do have to be very honest about, there's some deadbeat mamas, right? There's some mamas that can't get themselves together either. And to be very real, that again, to Dr. Dan's point, it takes all of us. It takes Black people, right? I mean, to Brother Jason's point, or both of them really, it takes everybody in order for us to be able to do this work. So, as we're kind of wrapping up, and I know we're a little bit over 7 o'clock, so thanks again for your time. I just want us to kind of do a quick round robin, just like we did in the beginning, something, succinct and to the point. Don't worry about holding back. I know some of us, do have to be careful of what we say. I'm understanding the freedom and not being able to. So send me what you want me to say and I'll say it for you, right? But the idea really, what is the state of Black Atlanta youth? I deal with a very specific group of them, and to see 2 of them, and I'm trying really hard not to cry, to see 2 of them get their very first part-time job. One of them sitting here arguing me down about the types of shoes he's wearing because he still needed to be fly when he went in there. And I'm like, brother, your shoes don't matter. Make sure they're non-slip. Get your behind in the building on time. And then the other one who came across the street because he took the time to go get a haircut for his first official shift, and saw me in the car and said to me, Miss Casey, thank you.
Yeah.
You do so much. Thank you. And I asked him if he was excited. And the reason I'm crying is because he began to cry because he was so excited that somebody took a chance on him, that Mr. Quincy hired him, that I stuck my neck out on the line for him and put my reputation on the line for him. Things that nobody in his family, not that they didn't want to, but didn't have the ability to do. And the fact that his life will forever be changed, however he decides to take that moment, because of us caring. But what I realized is that I got access to 10 of them on a good day, 20 depending on how they're feeling that week. And it's still 580 of them out there that are still lost in the wind, doing whatever they want to do because people feel like they're too hard to work with, right? And they don't want to take the time. And this is where it gets to the policy and the structure where it's going to take organizations like HAY, like a Black Men and Women of Valor, like a Atlanta, right? These organizations that are on the ground doing the work, not sitting in rooms telling people what to do, but on the ground doing the work. How do we continue to do the work? How do I get these 10 to a place where I can go and get 10 more and then get 10 more? And Asante has 10 and Jason has 10, right? How do we do that without the community? And how do we do that really without our city leadership saying it's not our job to get in the weeds, but we've got to be able to support those who are called to the weeds to ensure that now we don't have a cycle of young Black men in the criminal justice system. We don't have a cycle of another young Black man who is in a special education class, not because he's, learning differently, but because he can't get his behavior together because we forget to check on what's going on at home and he hasn't eaten a good meal with vegetables in the last 6 months. And now it's impacting his ability to pay attention and to sit still and to follow instructions. And so how do we break these cycles if we don't come together and if we don't get the necessary support financially, but also just in a network, right? In a network of being able to say, it's not our job to be in the weeds, but for those who are, this is how we continue to support the work. So as we kind of wrap up today, what is the next step? How do we break this cycle and how do we give and do better for our young people here in Atlanta?
Okay, I'll just jump in and I will say one of the things that I always say on any type of platform that I have the opportunity to speak on is about coalition building. And so, I would just challenge that everyone on here has an avenue that they're working in. I'm so, elated to work with and support HAY and support, the work of so many other organizations that are represented. And that's how we get the work done because we all can't take on all of it on our own shoulders. But if we're in our own respective lanes doing the work, then we can see more change. So I definitely would just say, pick up some books, look at some strategies. Again, the Second Reconstruction, the Atlanta riot are good resources to understand the economic and political structures that are preventing a lot of this change. And that's what we are at war against. Too often I see us attacking the people that we elect, whether they're strong enough to carry out the things that we as the people want them to do or not, and forgetting that it's a system that we're still fighting against. And so one person can't do it alone. So shout out to Casey and so many others that have connected to build these coalitions to save our youth.
I guess I'll jump in here and say, what I would say to people is to get involved. And what I mean by get involved, because people say that all the time, is I feel like in the last couple of years, particularly with the election, people have been pushing the importance of getting involved in our local politics and our local elections. And that's because those are the people and the decisions and the decision makers that are going to impact our day to day. Just don't forget that local politics and local involvement includes our schools. And it includes our community organizations that either support schools or that support and provide support and resources that help children and help families. You don't have to have a child. You don't have to have a child in a school to be empowered to be involved in that area. You ain't gotta like children. You just have to care. Seriously, like it's part of your ecosystem, right? Because if the dominoes don't fall in the right way, if our kids don't get what they need, it is going to impact all of us. Atlanta is too special of a place for us to have all of the right ingredients and still come out with biscuits that are tough as I don't know what. We have the right ingredients, right? So we have to protect that. So get involved in local politics, which includes your school. Know your schools, know the school board members. We have some here. Know your school leaders who are leading your schools, who are leading in the district. And ask questions, and don't let anybody gaslight you into thinking that because you don't have a kid in that building that you cannot ask questions about how kids are being instructed, how they're being led, and how they're being supported in our schools. That includes me. You need to ask questions. We should be giving you answers because we're getting paid with taxpayer dollars, and hold us accountable. So that's what I would say people need to do, and support your organizations. If you don't need, we don't necessarily need people to open up another organization, just support Hay.
I got a plus one of what's been said, and specifically this idea of building coalitions. I mean, even tonight, Jason, hey man, looking forward to the follow-up. Asante, I'm twice your age, brother, and you've encouraged me a great deal, and I look forward to connecting with you. So if we can just start building these webs that are focused on connecting with our students, and Casey, you already know we have unfinished business together, and I look forward to us continuing to work together. That's where my space is, just to start building these coalitions, but then roll up our sleeves and let's get to work. The young people are waiting. The state of Black youth, Atlanta youth is that they are waiting, and they are right, and they are ready to be loved and guided and pushed to the next level.
And I'm going to agree with that in terms of collaboration and connecting and building, but acting, right? So that's what you said in terms of do something, act, and it could be whatever it is that you're good at. Okay, so I'm not going to say money isn't good, because money is good. We need money to do things also. So you don't have time, money is good, but time is even better. And I'm so excited about these superstars that I've been able to hear, and I'm excited about connecting and hearing more about what everyone is doing. I am moved by you, Mr. Hill. I'm not twice your age, but I'm close to it. And I am encouraged by who we have in the classroom. I'm encouraged by just everything that I'm hearing here. And I commit to listen. I commit to being here, right? Because I can only do what y'all hold me accountable to do, right? And I can represent you if you tell me what's important to you. But if you don't tell me, if you don't speak up, then my email box honestly will be overwhelmed by other people's concerns. And yours won't get heard. And so please, please, please reach out to me, talk to me. You can yell at me. I don't care. I'm here to listen, because that's how I learn. That's how we grow, and that's how we affect change.
She's for real on that, y'all. She's not just going to listen. She's going to act. At least take her up on it.
I'm so excited. I want to do something with each and every one of y'all. And I wish I had just like a overflowing bank account, so that I could bless each and every one of y'all's organizations with the money that you need to do the amazing work that you've got going on. Thank you so much.
That's well said. I want to piggyback on that. And Casey, you and I have talked about this, and we have studied some of these things. I don't want to use the word to death, but it comes to mind. And it's time for us to get some of those studies and some of those plans that are in the works and start implementing them. I remember the genesis of the whole conversation at the city around water boys led to this blue ribbon panel that was going to be looking at this issue. And I talked to you about this a month or so ago, and I said, what's come of that? Nothing. That makes zero sense. If we're going to take on this issue, we're going to study this issue let's implement some recommendations and let's work in this partnership space that I keep talking about. One of the things that we found out in the affordable housing space is that APS was doing a little something, Atlanta Housing was doing a little something, the City of Atlanta was doing a little something, the Beltline was doing a little something, and we said we need a cohesive way to discuss this. And so I introduced legislation to establish an Affordable Housing Commission, and they've been doing great work in making recommendations. We have the Youth Commission. When we repopulated that, the first thing I did was I lobbied all my council members and I said, hey, let's give them $50,000 so they can actually implement and do something. I don't know what they're doing, but I know we put some money in place. Money by itself, without a vision, without those willing to do the hard work to implement, it's just sitting probably somewhere in a trust account, that money. And I want to give one example of a business that I just heard about that's coming to Atlanta that I think, Casey, there's some vision here that could be replicated and scaled up. The business is called GoPuff, GoPuff. Somebody thought it was hookah bars or something. I don't know. But anyway, what it is, it was a group, it was two guys in college, and they would go to the 7-Eleven, get the snacks and whatever kids would need when they were studying, overnight studying around midterms and finals and all of that, and they would mark it up. And they were so successful with that when they graduated, they said, let's go to other college towns and do the same thing. Go look it up. These guys are under 30 years old and they're multimillionaires. This thing has now been scaled up across the country. And it started off with some guys in a car and a trunk full of junk, okay? So this entrepreneurial thing that you've tapped into really needs to be exploited and really needs to be the young people with the courage to get out there to do what they're doing against the odds and who have figured out a pathway to survive. That needs to be harnessed and embraced in a way that it is nurtured and that they are able to be who they could potentially be. And the sky is the limit with these wraparound arms and services. So I'm just very, very excited about those possibilities. So look up GoPuff. I think it's something that may encourage your young men.
Absolutely. Thank all of. Go ahead.
Yeah. So just really quick before we go, I'll finish off. Thank every last one of you. If you're watching this and you're trying to figure out a way to get involved, and you may not have the capacity to come down to a rec center, or you may not have the capacity to come hang out on Northside Drive, but your capacity and your bandwidth may be to give, it may be to donate. Just find your lane and do that. Take some ownership and some responsibility. We all have a human obligation to get in the struggle for justice and freedom for everyone, everywhere. And so it's important that you find your mark, you find the legacy that you're supposed to leave. A lot of us are out here doing this work, and it's not easy work. It is a sacrifice. Last year, I was laid off from my career due to COVID-19 on my birthday, July 1st. And wow. It was such a blessing and a curse, because if that did not happen, I wouldn't have had the capacity and the bandwidth to do the work that I'm doing now. And I've made a lifelong commitment to this work. I don't plan to go back to a corporate sector. I plan to commit my life, come hell or high water, to make this work, to begin to uproot those generational cycles. And so if you're sitting there, you're wondering, how can I help? We can use your support. Coretta Scott King said that the greatness and the strength of any community is built on the actions of its members. And so find what your action is, find whatever space, find whatever lane that is. We need you. I can't do it without you. My team can't do it without you. We need your support. So thank you so very much. And I hope to see you all very soon.
Awesome. Bless you.
Oh, this was awesome. Thank you so much. There was a little trepidation in even holding this event, but we knew that it was necessary. And it was a necessary conversation to start, right? That there's not going to be a clear-cut answer, and there's going to be multiple answers, right? There's no right way to do this. But we have to get started someplace. And what we wanted to do was be that catalyst to bring folks together to the table to ensure that we all know that as long as the direction is the same, how we get there may be a little bit different, and that is okay. And so we are so committed to this work as well, just to echo some of Asante's sentiments, that we are really dedicated to making sure that we don't give up on our young people, that, you know, we wish we could have different types of support and just be able to snap our fingers and make the call. Although I think some calls can be made and funding could come a little faster than it does. But at the end of the day, the goal is to continue to move forward. And I'm a firm believer that if you are a good steward of what you have, more and more then comes to you.
That's
and
right.
we've seen that. I can't be any more transparent than when everything in the coffer is empty. A donation comes in, a partnership comes in, a check comes in, a cash drop is made somehow because we are doing the work. And what comes in goes back to these young people. And, you know, and I'll just end with this. What makes us so unique is that Boys and Girls Club has their lane. And, you know, a YMCA has their lane. And, you know, all these organizations are doing phenomenal work. But we have young people that are literally making the decision between, can I call Miss Casey for a cash app so I can eat DoorDash tonight or get some food from the corner store? Or am I going to go bash somebody's head in because literally I have nothing in my pocket and no one in my house does either. And so we make the decision to send you the $25 so you can eat, so that you don't make the choice to go do something that is going to land you in jail or put you in a cycle that you are not going to be able to break yourself out of. So please note that we take no salary. We're not there. And I understand the structure of an organization, and we have to get to a place where we can compensate folks who are doing this work administratively, but everything that is coming into this organization is going back to these young people to ensure that they know that there is somebody who has them. And we ask the hard question: before I send anything, what are you asking me for? Why are you asking me? You know, what do you need it for? Because I want to ensure what we are supporting. But because I built relationship, those same young men would be like, well, Miss Casey, I thought you were just going to give it to me. But since you asked me for it, don't worry about it. Because what I'm going to tell you is for, you're not going to give it to me. And I can appreciate that. That means we have trust. So that means the next time you tell me that you need it for something and it's legitimate, I can give it to you because you're also honest about when it's not a legitimate ask. And again, that's about relationship, and that's about them knowing that we're going to take care of them to the best of our ability and empower them to have the tools to hopefully be able to take care of themselves. So again, thank you to everybody who joined us tonight, to all of our panelists and our special guests. This will not be the last time that we come together or the last time that you will hear from me, but I am so happy that the public and other folks have had an opportunity to meet you all, hear your heart, and know that we are not out here doing this work by ourselves. And I would be remiss if I don't shout out KD, co-founder, and Coach Boyd, and Dia, and Katie, and everybody else behind the scenes. But also a very special shout out to both Asante and Jason, who were literally on the ground with us this summer. Like, took their time and came out in the heat and sat out there with us. And that does not go unnoticed. And y'all will forever be honorary members of HEA, whatever it is y'all want to call it. Y'all family, y'all can't go nowhere. And we are now indoctrinating the rest of y'all. Y'all not going nowhere either. Because if you know me, I don't care nothing about your feelings. Once you in, and that's it. So again, thanks so much to all of you. For those of you who are watching, please follow all of us, ask questions, support how you can, and stay connected. So the next time we come together, hopefully we'll have more solutions for you and updates of things that we have been able to help progress our young people in. So we'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you for your leadership.
Yes.
Love y'all. Thank you.
Love you more.